last night, Miami Hurricanes beat the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I don't know about you, but I think it's impossible not to extrapolate watching Carson Beck play against the team that eliminated Georgia a year ago. But I found myself thinking that a lot last night.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely did too. I definitely either fairly or unfairly was just kind of thinking about the Sugar Bowl and how, Stockton played versus how Beck was playing that game. And I know it's completely different teams and Al Golden's not there anymore, and they lost a ton of really great players on their defense. But yeah, it was very interesting that was his first game as a Miami Hurricane, wasn't it? The team that he couldn't play when he was injured against Georgia, and they lost.
Yeah, absolutely. It was and Beck played well, amazing what can happen when receivers can make some plays. Actually turn complete incompletions into completions.
Yeah. That was interceptions and completions, probably.
Yeah, that definitely could have been picked in the end zone if that dude doesn't go up and make a Odell Beckham-esque one-handed grab. That was pretty nasty. Also, the other playmaker, they had Tony. That dude, he looked pretty good.
10.
Yeah, he looked pretty good in that game.
That other touchdown Beck had, I thought, was a really great play by Beck to escape the rush and throw that on the run, just right on the money. That was a money play from Beck, man.
For sure, really, and that's where Beck, I feel like, was always his best. Like, not necessarily the deep shots, but like the 25 to 30 yards down the field. Like, he was always pretty accurate when it comes to that. And Gunnar Stockton, not saying he's not, but we haven't seen, just the film that Carson Beck has now in now his third year as a starter. But I for one, I'm not a Mario Cristobal fan, so I think there's definitely people like having the conversation of, are you taking Mario Cristobal or Marcus Freeman? I think Freeman, Mario Cristobal. I think someone even chimed in on the chat, like, no contest in that one. And I just feel like Marcus Freeman was kind of being anointed as this like top 5 coach in college football, like way too quick, personally. Like, he's a young guy, he's got Notre Dame, he's recruiting well, but like, no one said that Sonny Dykes was all of a sudden like a top 5 coach because he took TCU to the national championship game, So I don't know. It's kind of interesting, like, especially last year, like, I'm not trying to take away from him, but I guess I am taking away from him. They beat a Penn State team that, I still don't know how good they were. They beat Georgia without Carson Beck. They beat Indiana. Like, I don't know that those 3 wins make you somehow a powerhouse program. It's like, it was big time finish to the year. You got to the national championship game, and it looked like Ohio State was going to blow them out, but they definitely gave them a game. But I don't know. I think people were just a little ahead on Notre Dame personally, and I'm curious to see what they are the rest of the way, because they lost to Northern Illinois a year ago. I'm not one that thinks year in and year out Notre Dame is just like always overrated and always plays nobody. But I think last year was an especially weak schedule for their standards, and they lost to Northern Illinois and they just blew out everyone else. I'm not sure they beat a ranked team I think USC might have been the best team they beat last year.
Yeah, no, they beat Louisville too.
Louisville, okay. So yeah, like that's probably their 2 best wins. Like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, but
they beat both Army and Navy. I think they were both ranked, but like if they were 24, 25.
Yeah, and Miami could be a top 5 team. They could go undefeated as far as we know this year, and that we could have just watched 2 top 5, top 10 teams play on Sunday night. But I don't know. I'm curious to see what Notre Dame does this year, especially like if USC is improved. I forget who they get from the ACC this year. I know they got to go at Arkansas. That's lower level SEC team, but Arkansas is not an easy place to go in and play. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what Notre Dame does moving forward.
Yeah, I think also something that maybe wasn't as big of a storyline going into the season as it perhaps should have been was them losing Al Golden. I think he's the Bengals defensive coordinator now. I mean, Al Golden was putting up master classes every single week last year, and they were an elite defense. And, they had a great running game last year. They had a great running quarterback. They have, one of the best running backs in the country. But really that defense was the heart and soul of that team. And, of course, they lost Watts. They lost Morrison in the draft. They lost a lot of guys. Riley Mills got hurt. But I really think that my main takeaway from watching that Miami game, other than, wow, Carson Beck looks pretty good, was Al Golden is going to be a huge loss. And I don't know if I would go as far as you on the Marcus Freeman criticism. I still think Marcus Freeman is a pretty great coach. And as much as like, yeah, their playoff run last year, they weren't beating, the hardest teams in the country, but they played Ohio State and they played them pretty damn tough and they beat all the other teams.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I'm not ready to like be out on Notre Dame as a program or say that they don't have a bright future, because I still think that they do under Freeman. But yeah, yesterday was as far as the short term for the 2025 season, I really think Notre Dame's defense is going to decline a lot, and they probably aren't going to be the same. They're a very good team still, but I think they might not be a championship caliber team right away. Although their quarterback looked pretty good in his first game, Carr. He made some nice plays.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think Miami deserves a lot of credit for shutting down Jeremiah Love in this game. But yeah, Notre Dame bye week, then Texas A&M at home, and then at Arkansas in a couple weeks. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Obviously, Boise State, not sure. They're not going to be ranked, I'm sure, by the time. Yeah, but USC, yeah, it looks like Pitt, Syracuse, not necessarily getting the best teams from the ACC, NC State this year, so we'll see. But let's put you on the spot. Would you rather have Gunnar Stockton or Carson Beck as your quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs right now?
I think I still would say I'd rather have Carson Beck, just because I feel like all of the criticism for Carson Beck is made up of like, he's not a good locker room guy. He's not a good dude. And it's like, the people criticizing him for that are people like you and me who we're not in the locker room. We don't know anything about what's going on. So criticizing Carson Beck for like off the field stuff when he doesn't have any recorded off the field history, it's all just like vibes based, has always been one of the more frustrating talking points that I've seen Georgia fans peddle. And I do think Gunnar Stockton is good. I mean, we'll get to Gunnar Stockton in a second, but if I had to pick between one or the other, I just think Beck is, has 2 years of starting experience on him. He looked really great targeting the intermediate areas of the field yesterday, just like he did last year. And I don't know. I still think Carson Beck is good. And last night I felt very validated by that take.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. It's almost like I personally, maybe, this is telling on myself here, but I didn't want Mark Richt fired in 2015. Like, I thought Mark Richt was a great coach, but I was in Mark Richt's camp, and it's like at the end of the day, the best part about firing Mark Richt was that we can just take that off the table. It's just like we can all not want to fire the coach every time we not even lose a game, but just are losing at halftime or something. So it was like 2016 was just nice. It's like we're all rowing in the same direction again. Mm-hmm. So it's almost just for vibes purposes. The fact that we are having the conversation, obviously, right now, but I feel confident we're not going to have the Carson Beck conversation all year. Whereas if he was the quarterback, he'd be doing this on a weekly basis, and half the fan base is like, "Oh, but he drives a Lamborghini."
Like that's
the game or whatever. Yeah. Who is his roommate?
He dates the influencer. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not even worth having the Carson Beck or Gunnar Stockton conversation to me, because it's not like they were ever having to choose between the two. It was pretty apparent after the Texas game that Carson Beck was not coming back to Georgia no matter what. Of course, we all thought he was going to enter the draft, but then he got hurt and, decided to stay and go to Miami to try to, get his draft stock back up to what it was before the 2024 season. So I don't know, that's why I think it's just like, I don't want to be talking about Carson Beck the whole year. If he does something good, like last night, going in and beating a national runner-up in the first game, we'll talk about it because that's a big thing that happened. But every single week, I really don't want to watch Georgia fans comparing Gunnar Stockton's box score to Carson Beck's box score, because it's just pointless. There's just no point in having that conversation, because it was never a possibility that he was going to come back in 2025.
For sure. And it's his first game, and it being against literally the team that ended Georgia's season last year made it especially kind of relevant. But yeah, that's why I don't even really look at Carson Beck as a transfer from Georgia to Miami. It's like he transferred from the NFL to Miami. Like, he wasn't coming back to Georgia regardless. It would have been Jake Fromm level of poor decisions to leave early. That's for sure. Your stock is so much lower right now than it was at the start of your junior season. I'm not sure why that would be the time you'd go pro. But yeah, he made the right choice just for his draft stock and the right choice monetarily, because apparently he's making more money than if he wherever he would have been drafted last year, even if he got drafted first round, apparently.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure a lot of Georgia fans took exception to. Did you see his post game interview where he was like, damn near in tears, like, I love football again. I've found my joy for the game again. I'm sure that pissed a lot of Georgia fans off. Like, what, you played for us and you didn't love football? You didn't care. You didn't try, blah, blah, blah. But, like, I don't know. I still do love it for the kid that he had that moment, because he really did go through the ringer last year in terms of his receivers dropping everything, his offensive line not really being healthy the whole year, and then, of course, him getting injured, and then him throwing all those picks and getting criticized left and right. Like, you can kind of see how that would impact the guy's love for the sport. I think Georgia fans
for sure
would be disingenuous to act like, oh, Carson Beck saying that just proves that he didn't care last year. Like, no, I think that there were things actively working against him last year that probably led to him saying something like that. But that, I know that's going to be perceived as like a shot at the Georgia football program, and maybe it kind of is, but I didn't think that was a huge deal. I've seen some Georgia pundits complaining about that today, and I just wanted to.
Okay.
It's not a big deal, guys.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you, because it's like, obviously this guy, and I'm not saying it's just all phony, like he's phony and it's PR or whatever, but this guy knows what's being said about him. Like he obviously knows that, and he's probably trying to, like, change his image to to an extent. Like, yeah, I love the game, I love my teammates and all that stuff. Maybe he's making an extra effort to have that connection with his teammates, because maybe he didn't have. Maybe that's factual that he didn't have it at Georgia, and that's why the season didn't go as well as it did. And it's like, maybe now he's making an effort to improve that. Guy trying to learn from his mistakes or something. I don't know. Yeah. And maybe that was a complete false narrative to begin with, and he's always loved football. I tend to think it's probably more. This guy cares way more about football than me or you do. Like, this guy, it's his job 7 days a week, basically.
Yeah, I agree. Last thing that I'll say before we do move on, but yeah, that reminds me of, remember last year when they were like, do you watch football? And he was like, no, because whenever I watch it on TV, I just get really stressed out, because I look at the coverages and I look at the linebackers, and if they're not where they're supposed to be, I start freaking out. It's like, people saw that as him saying he didn't like football, but I kind of saw that as the opposite of him being like, I like football too much that I can't even chill out and watch it because it will stress me out. Like,
yeah,
he is a gamer, man. I don't like this reputation that he's not a gamer, because he is.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's like, he can't casually watch it like one of us, because when No Sean Marino said he didn't watch really football growing up, no one cared about that. When he said it was like, who are your favorite players? He was like, I don't really watch much football, and it's like, yeah, it's like no one cared about that. It's just people get picky when it comes to guys they already don't like for whatever reason. But yeah, we won't have to do this every week. Watching Carson Beck in Miami beat Notre Dame. It was my home dog of the week, for the record, so I definitely want to toot my own horn there.